There comes a time when you have to accept responsibility for your actions. You have to own your part in what you do, what you say, how you walk, how you talk. My spirit told me many months ago, a few months ago rather, that something was wrong with the storyline pertaining to the Idaho 4. I had no knowledge of the children. I had no knowledge of their friends. I did not know them. Never been to the Pacific Northwest. Don't know anything about Idaho. Didn't know anything about the people they fraternized with. And the one thing I did not do was pass gossip about the kids, their friends, family, exes, whomever. It's the one thing I did not bring to my network was gossip, because I don't rock like that. Every blue moon I may repeat something that I heard, but I don't put my stamp on it. But this new information pertaining to Xana and Ethan allegedly dying last, if that is true. This Reddit post by Ethan Chapin's sister-in-law saying that Dylan heard screams, scuffles, which were not mentioned in the affidavit. If I am to believe this person, then that means she gave different versions to different people. The fact that she called someone, do not know the time she called someone, because that hasn't been verified either, to come to the house. That would lead me to believe she heard everything in that house on the morning of November 13th. And I have to ask Dylan Mortensen, how could you abandon your so-called friends knowing they were in distress? What type of human doesn't dial 911? You can come up with 1,000 excuses. You could spin the story 1,000 ways. But what you can't do is explain what's supposed to be common sense. You see, I knew something wasn't right when I played audio from the captain. And he said one thing that stuck with me to let me know that you knew more than what you said to law enforcement. He said the call came from inside of the house, the 911 call, and that someone else called 911, and it was not a roommate, it was not you, Dylan, and it was not Bethany. And that told the story right there. Someone spoke on your behalf and Bethany's behalf that allegedly this incident took place outside. You falling out, one of you was hysterical. And I always said that didn't sound right to me. People running up to these two people standing outside in a cold, one on the ground and one incoherent. And it's not to say that we don't have good Samaritans, that somebody wouldn't run up and ask somebody, what's wrong? Why are you screaming? Why are you hollering? Why are you crying? But my spirit told me it didn't sound right. And you know why it didn't sound right? Because it was a messenger. And the queen knew better. Why is there a messenger running to social media to speak on their behalf? Because they should know they shouldn't be talking, because it was an ongoing investigation. Now we have this Reddit post to contradict basically the version you gave in a report to the police. You thought a dog was being played with by Kaylee. Okay? Opening and closing doors. Were you inebriated or sober? Were you under the influence of any type of narcotics, drugs? Why are you opening and closing doors? Because that makes no sense to me. You hear someone say, someone's here. You also hear whimpering. You also see a masked man in this house that you do not know, and there's no party and no function going on. And this late morning, it came to me vivid as day. I said, Queen, why would you get up and open and close a door in the wee hour? And my other half said, Queen, you would only get up to look out your door if you heard a disturbance. Checkmate. Let me say that again. You would only get up back and forth if you heard a disturbance. You heard everything. Every footstep, every squeal, every holler, every bump, every thud, every stomp, every slam, every scream, every holler. That's why you got up in the first place, if I'm to believe this version. You heard everything. And you abandoned your friends on this fateful morning for whatever reason. Because you see, to shut your door and lock it, if I'm to believe that you did this, means absolutely nothing. Because a stranger has walked by you allegedly after murdering your friends and exits out the slider door. Who's to say he wouldn't have come back in? Because allegedly you didn't go and lock the slider door. Then we have to ask, was the slider door able to be locked? And you lied in wait yourself 7.5 hours. Allegedly calling the girls, and we'll believe this Reddit post from Ethan Chapin's sister-in-law. You stayed in your room, allegedly. But something made you allegedly call this male to your house because you did not want to get up and walk out of your room. That makes no damn sense. You hear a commotion in your house where you live. You get up and open a door at least 3 times. On the 3rd time, you see someone walk by your door with a mask and bushy eyebrows, excuse me. He says nothing to you, you say nothing to him. You shut your door, lock your door. You don't even have enough gumption to fear for your own safety to dial 911, because this is the gist of the story. The perpetrator could have easily slit your throat on sight. Came back in. Damn, I just passed somebody. You never locked the door. So he had an easy way back in. We have to ask ourselves why he would spare you. He was in a fog, tunnel vision. But yet he returns back the next morning after 9 a.m. What did he forget? The sheath and a whole human. Was he contemplating going back in to get the sheath and finish you off? Who's to say? But it makes no damn sense. I told myself, you heard everything, and you did nothing to save your friends. Because the fact that you called this guy, whoever he is, to come over to the house means you heard everything. And it was still on your mind when you got up. Now, whether you went to sleep or not, I do not know. But the fact that you call an entire person to come to the house, to walk around that house, because you feared opening your door to walk around your own house, tells me you heard a disturbance in that house with those kids, your alleged friends, and you turned a blind eye and you did nothing but allegedly shut your door. So what I have to tell myself is the obvious. What proof do we have that you didn't go out and discover Ethan and Xana? You didn't go out and discover Maddie and Kaylee upstairs, bludgeoned to death, and you crawl back into your fucking room and lied in wait until deciding to call somebody else over, daylight savings time, to discover the bodies. Because how convenient would that be? Let me call somebody else and tell them I heard strange things. I'm scared to come out of my room. Could you please come over here and walk around the house and see if you see anything strange? Because you knew they were already dead. You heard the scuffle, the slamming, the bamming, the holler, the screams, the cries. You heard it all. And you did nothing. You didn't think about your friends. You didn't think about preserving your own damn life. Because, hello, Cookie, the killer could have easily killed you on sight. If we're to believe he actually passed the door and saw you, number one. Number two, he could have pushed the door open at any time to see who's behind the door, to see who's in the room. What was to keep Kohlberger from breaking the lock? There's nobody to help you. He killed a whole guy. Listen to me good. He killed a whole guy, a 6-foot white male. So who are you to him to not breach a door and slit your throat and stab you up? There were no saviors at 1122 King Road, November 13th. There was nobody to help nobody. You heard everything. I've pondered this now, listening to my last live, and it came to me. I said, she heard everything. That's why she got up in the first place. Because she heard something. Heavy walking, across the floor, up the stairs, dog barking. That's why she got up 3 times. You heard it all. I refuse to believe 4 people died in that house and none of them screamed. None of them hollered. And if we'll believe this relative of Mr. Chapin, allegedly you said they did scream. That there was a scuffle. So in your right mind, you heard all this noise, commotion, thumps, bumps, scuffles, screams, but yet the affidavit tones it down to whimpering. How convenient. Because you knew you couldn't say, I heard thumps, thuds, falling, slamming, crying, moaning, screaming, because you never called 911. So you had to diminish what you actually heard. And the fact you called that guy over proves you heard everything that night. And basically, you needed a witness to say he found the bodies, when all along you heard your friends scuffling with Brian C. Koiberger. You heard the dog barking excessively because the dog saw an unidentified person that he did not know, so that's why he was barking. You've heard this person go up and down stairs. You heard this person be confronted by Ethan, Xana. You heard everything. And you never thought to call 911. Huddled in your room listening, or as we would say in the street, ear hustling. You didn't think enough of your own safety, that this thing could also breach your door and cut you up. We also hear that you did call the roommates and got no answer after the screaming stopped. And that is so illogical to me, that you would dial these girls' numbers, get no answer, and still lie in your room and do God knows what for 7.5 hours. Make it make sense to me. I believe you came out of that room. I believe you saw that Ethan and Xana were butchered. I believe you went upstairs and saw that the two girls were butchered. And perhaps you went down to Bethany's room and slept with her until you all decided to call someone to make it seem like they found the bodies, because you willingly abandoned your friends hours beforehand. What reason you would do this, I do not know. But anybody with their logical thinking head would say, if I'm hearing noises of people screaming, hollering, thuds slamming around, bodies falling around, the logical thing would be to call 911. I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't sound right. So I'm going to call the police and let them handle it. And then I will exit my room when I think authorities are in the house. And what leads me to believe that you knew what happened to your friends is because hours passed, damn near 8 hours, and you call a stranger to come to the house. That shows me you heard everything. You chose not to intervene or call law enforcement. And when you decided to rise from your slumber, if at all you ever slept, you called a complete stranger to come to the house and enter the house to a contaminated crime scene and discover what you already knew was dead. Because, and listen at me carefully, if you had the fortitude to call this guy 7.5 hours later to a crime scene that you already knew happened and did nothing, you could have used that same discretion to call that same guy after 4 a.m. So did you call this guy to tell him what you heard after calling the girls and got no answer? If we're to believe this version from Ethan Chapin's sister-in-law. And why would she be lying because then that's going to be very bad to have this tit for tat version. Somebody told her this information. Somebody told her that somebody called. And we know that it's true because the captain said so in a press conference to the public. He verified that the phone call came from inside of the house to 911 at 11:58 a.m. That someone expressed that someone had passed out and that someone was incoherent. So that means this version that we thought took place outside took place inside. And so a third party was inside with the two alleged survivors. And that would lead us only to believe one of you women called someone to the crime scene for some reason. And why would that be? Because possibly you had already seen the dead bodies and you didn't call 911. And you needed to make it look like somebody else found the dead kids. You are the friend that no one needs. Because what we have to tell ourselves is the obvious. The next time something jumps off and Dylan Mortensen is on scene, or Bethany as well, because we don't know her role either, what are you going to do the next time there's distress with one of your friends? You see something terrible happening in the street, at your job, in your home, in your apartment complex. Are you going to also, again, turn a blind eye? Play dumb, play possum. But then later run to the police to give your version after the fact. As they say in the street, with friends like you, who needs enemies? I've dissected this case from top to bottom. I've listened to all said information, and it came to me just a little while ago that you did hear everything. Because the captain of the Moscow Police Department confirmed it, that a third party called from inside of the house. So that means somebody had to have called that person to come to the house. And the obvious question is, why would he be called 7.5 hours later? How did he enter into the house? Who let him in? And why was the description more about you and Bethany than the dead kids in the house? And if people were outside using the terminology that someone inside was dead, then that means somebody from inside of the house called person to person to person to tell them somebody was dead inside of the house. So the word was circulating before the police ever arrived to the scene of the crime. You're pitiful. And what's going to be even worse is if we find out that Bethany was also awake and she heard the disturbances and she did nothing. And that somewhere in the night before daylight, you went to her and discussed what you heard. And she played possum as well. There are no words for what happened at that house. And there are definitely no words for a so-called friend or friends never calling 911 to render aid. Because it will be up to a medical examiner to say who could have lived and who could not have lived with 911 being called. And it will be sad to know that someone could have possibly survived on November 13th. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $Big Angie 129 Cash App. Thank you for your time. You have been listening to The Vault. Exhale.